All right, it is 7 o'clock, which means it's time for Toolbox Tuesday, our weekly webinar series that helps put tools in your toolbox to help you pound out problems and sharpen your saw. This week, our session is on Speechcraft, and I've got to tell you, there really is no better method, more proven method for getting guests into your club and then converting those guests to members. I tell you, I sent out the email invite this week, and I got quite a bit of response back from it. But one of my favorites I wanted to share. I got a response from a Toastmasters member who said, "Our club doesn't have too many members. And yet Speechcraft has been successfully conducted. This month, 3 out of 4 Speechcrafters became members, and the 4th needs to find a different club that fits his family situation. That makes it 4 out of 4. And I've got to tell you, when you hear stats like that, that speaks volumes to the value of the program. And today, our presenter is past Division A Director Matthew Villela, and Matthew is up in Thunder Bay, and he's conducted many Speechcraft sessions. They do some for community clubs, but he's done this program a lot of times, and I've had the opportunity to talk with Matt about how he runs the program, and I'm thrilled that he's willing to come on and share his insight with us today. So without further ado, let's put it together for our presenter today, Matt Villela, Distinguished Toastmaster. Matt?
Thanks, Dave. That's quite an intro. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I'm recovering from a cold, so hopefully my voice doesn't crack too much. Dave gave all the spoilers away. So yeah, Speechcraft, do it, run it, done, perfect. No, just kidding. So my name is Matthew Villela. I started as a Speechcrafter back in 2010, and I joined because I was putting off Toastmasters for probably 7 years, and I saw Speechcraft, and I'm like, wow, 10 weeks only, and I'll be a better speaker. Perfect. So I signed up, and I've been a Toastmaster ever since. So I'll give a little bit more about that history in a bit. So Speechcraft. Why are we here today? So we're going to talk about what Speechcraft is, the benefits of Speechcraft, because believe it or not, there are some benefits, and then why it's a vital part of membership building. How do you set up a Speechcraft? Agenda, length, cost, and what are you waiting for? Which is a really important question. So we will get through all that in this next 45 minutes. So what are ways that your club can attract and retain members? And this is a rhetorical question because Dave has already spoiled the answer. But what we can do is you can do an open house. So you can promote and invite people, and they can come and see a meeting, and then you could try to get them to sign up and beg and plead, and hopefully they stay. Might work. Word of mouth usually works really well. If someone is benefiting from Toastmasters, their story goes a long way. You can put up ads and radio spots like District 6 did a couple years ago and spend a lot of money and hope people sign up. You can do videos on the web, which I know Ben has done a lot of. Social media campaigns, which seems to work. You can do nothing, hope for the best, and hope people walk through that door and sign up. Or, spoiler alert, Speechcraft. So a little bit about me and where I came from. As I said, I joined 10 years ago, 11 years ago with a Speechcraft program, 10 weeks. We offer a Speechcraft program twice a year at Nana Bijou, and it's 10 weeks. And so we do one in January and one in September. And the majority of our members have come through Speechcraft. And so that is a perfect way to get members through the door and then also retain them, because Speechcraft, as I'm going to explain, also benefits current members. We have done over 30, I have done over 30 Speechcrafts in my time as a Toastmaster. I have done many in the community, one including our School of Medicine, one at a bank, a few at some businesses, and a few at some nonprofit agencies. So I've done many different types of Speechcraft, many different settings. And so I'm going to share some best practices and how to do a Speechcraft today. So if you have questions as we go through, feel free to write them in the question and answer box, and Dave will be able to address them later. And hopefully we can start some discussion and go from there. So Speechcraft, from Toastmasters International, this is what they say. Speechcraft is a short-term program designed to teach public speaking skills to members and non-members. During the program, participants have the opportunity to present speeches, introduce other speakers, serve as an evaluator, and participate in table topics. So the way that we do our Speechcraft, and there's no right or wrong way, but the way we do it, and actually there's a Speechcraft happening right now. My meeting usually meets 7 to 9 here in Thunder Bay, and Toolbox Tuesday happens to fall on the same time. So we are currently in our week 4 of our Speechcraft program, and we run it with our meetings. So we have meetings, and we kind of just embed it in our meetings, and for the 10 weeks, that's how it looks. We build in some educationals, and we ensure that our members have time to speak and do speeches as well. And I'll show you a little later on what our agenda looks like for the 10 weeks, so hopefully that gives you an idea. So it's a short-term program. A short-term program is beneficial for some people, especially individuals who feel that their life is so busy, but they really need something. So this is a spark that they need, and kind of introduce them to what Toastmasters is. The benefits, huge. It's a huge refresher for experienced Toastmasters, especially if experienced Toastmasters have got too comfortable. Having new people in the room creates new challenges, it creates excitement, and running a Speechcraft program, you get different things thrown at you at a different time, and it sparks excitement in old members, and I've seen that many different times. For people that are coming in as a Speechcraft participant, it's an intro to public speaking. It's an intro to Toastmasters. It's a very, very, very small sample of what we do on a regular basis. It's not a long-term commitment, so they are committing to 4, 6, 8, 10 weeks, whatever it is, and that appeals to a lot of people. People really will sign up for it. New opportunities for leadership. If you're doing a Speechcraft program, there are many different opportunities for leadership, for HPLs, to complete educational goals, and to do new challenges, which is great. You enhance the club experience. Sometimes clubs get stale with the same members coming over and over again. This allows new members to come in and allows the club experience to change. It also allows members to get your educational goals completed. So during Speechcraft, you have to do educationals and you have to do speeches. And it encourages members who may have got too comfortable to get up and speak and share their stories. And that can work towards educational goals as well, which is great. So some best practices that I wanted to share. Usually an effective Speechcraft course, I would say anywhere from 8 to 10 weeks. Toastmasters International recommends 4 to 6. I would say 8 to 10 so they can get the full experience, but based on who you're offering it to and what the purpose is, you can determine the number of weeks. And they should be consecutive weeks. You shouldn't have one once in February, once in March, maybe once in April, maybe skipping May, starting again in June. It should be consecutive weeks if possible, because that is the best bang for the buck. It's very flexible, and you can do it based on what works for your club, what works for the individuals that you're doing it for, and if you're doing it for a company, what works best for them as well. I would encourage you to incorporate into your club meeting. If you are doing it as a club, don't set a separate time for Speechcraft. Do it as part of your club meeting. Include your members. If you have the manpower and you want to do it as a separate meeting, fine, but that just makes more work. I would really, really encourage you to incorporate it into your meeting. Unless you're taking it on the road and you're going to a business or an agency, then you're going to have to obviously set up a meeting there. You need at least 4 to 6 Toastmasters to make this successful. It shouldn't be one individual doing this all. That's a little crazy. You'll burn yourself out, and it's a lot of work. But if you have 4 to 6 committed Toastmasters, it could be really beneficial. And they don't have to sign up for every week. But if you have 4 to 6 that are willing to help out, you'll be fine. Toastmasters should be giving oral evaluations of every speech that happens in a Speechcraft program. A new participant shouldn't be in a situation where they have to evaluate someone orally. They can do that written. You want to encourage each Speechcrafter to try to do 3 speeches. In our program, in our 10 weeks, we're lucky if we get 2. We really try to push them to do 2 or 3, but it takes some ambition to do that, and not everyone is really ready to do that. But we encourage 2 or 3 if possible. Every week, there should be 1 or 2 educational speeches presented by a Toastmaster. So a Toastmaster gets up, talks about a subject, 3 to 5 minutes, really short speeches, condensed, and then at the end, each participant receives like a worksheet or a sheet that explains the points that were covered. Every week, participants should participate in table topics. If they're a Speechcraft member, they should participate in table topics every week. So build it in, make it work. Handouts should be given, as I mentioned, to each participant, so they have something to take home and reference when they are preparing their speeches. You can do a Speechcraft either at your regular meeting spot or another space, a boardroom. So if you are offering it out to public agencies, make sure they have a boardroom or someplace that you can actually hold an effective meeting. Each participant receives a workbook. And I'll talk more about the workbooks in a bit, but this is a workbook, Speechcraft workbook. And there's many different chapters that individuals can learn, and then there's evaluations in here as well. So it's a really cool resource that they actually get and get to take home. Things you need to run a successful Speechcraft. As I mentioned already, 4 to 6 Toastmasters, depending on how many participants you are looking at attracting. One point that I don't have on here, I would recommend no more than 15 people per Speechcraft, because just based on numbers and based on number of speeches and the number of weeks, 15 is the sweet spot. I've done lots of Speechcraft, and 15 is the perfect number. 20 is a little hectic and crazy, and you need to be really organized in order to do that. One person takes the lead, and this can be for an HPL, or it could be later on in Pathways. It could be an educational goal based on where you're at in Pathways. You need to do a little bit of marketing. So with us, when we do a Speechcraft out in the community, we don't do any marketing. We have word of mouth, and people just contact us and they say, yeah, we're interested in a Speechcraft. What's required? For our college, when we do it, we promote it in our community flyer, and it's promoted around the college as well. So it works both ways. Timing device, you do need a timing device, or you can use those handy Toastmaster cards. Make sure you have a set of those. Evaluation forms, pens, the workbooks, and you might need AV equipment based on where you're at. But really, you don't need a lot to run Speechcraft. You just need these few little things, and you could probably do a successful Speechcraft if you need to. The workbooks, caution, don't order them 2 weeks in advance because you might not get them. Sometimes Toastmasters takes a month, especially across the border. It took us a month and a half one time to get books, so be cautious of that. Give yourself enough time. Don't be stranded without books. All right, so a question. Matt, what topics do you cover during a Speechcraft? That's a really good question, Dave. Thanks for asking. So this is what we have included in our Speechcraft. You don't have to use these. You can change them up if you wanted to, or you can add things based on what an organization is asking for. So when you connect with an organization, you really say, hey, what do you want to learn? And you can maybe focus and modify these a little bit. But typically what we cover in 10 weeks, why Toastmasters? Why on earth would anyone want to come to a Toastmasters meeting and public speak? So we talk about that. We talk about the organization itself, how it's been around for 90-something years, how it's helped millions of people, current clubs around the world, that kind of thing. We talk about Toastmaster etiquette because if you walk into a Toastmasters meeting and you are new, you wonder why everyone's shaking hands. You wonder why certain people address certain people a certain way. So we talk about the etiquette and the importance, and we remind people about cell phones and eating and, you know, unwrapping things. So just so everyone is on the same page at the beginning. Then we move on and we talk about organizing a speech and the importance of having a strong introduction, the body, a lot of content, and then strong conclusion. Getting to the point and not blabbering. It's really important. Sometimes when you speak, people just keep adding content and it's not needed. Evaluations, super important in Toastmasters, how to give an evaluation effectively. So we talk about the importance of evaluations. Gestures, using gestures and how to use those appropriately. Controlling nerves, huge topic, and we usually do this around week 3 or 4, depending, but everyone who comes as a speech crafter and a new member is extremely nervous, and how to control those nerves and make them kind of go away. A vocal variety, how to use your voice as an effective tool when you're doing a presentation. Use of technology, super important. Sometimes individuals go up and do a PowerPoint and they have no idea how to do a PowerPoint or how to use that technology effectively. So we talk about the importance of that, and we encourage individuals to do that as well. Humor, how to use humor in an effective and appropriate manner so people don't leave offended or questioning what you were saying. Dave smiles at that. What happens when things go wrong? So if you are doing a speech and things go drastically bad, what can you do to salvage it instead of crying? So we talk about that and we have some laughs. And then I always end a Speechcraft session with what's next? You came here 10 weeks ago, you gained some skills, you gained some confidence. Are you gonna go home and sit back on your couch, or are you gonna come and join us on your Toastmasters journey? And then I explain pathways and how that works as well. So that's typically what we've built into a 10-week program. These follow the textbook as well. Most of these are headings in their textbooks, so they're super important that we cover them. So on the next slide here, we have a typical Speechcraft itinerary, and this is what is happening right now as we speak. So we are on week 4, and there's an educational happening on gestures, your body speaks, how you use your gestures effectively, and controlling nerves. And we have created our own kind of thing called the sauce and the best method, but you could create anything you want to do. So if you go through here, you see everyone's assigned a role, everyone's assigned a speech, and not all these individuals that have signed up are experienced Toastmasters. For example, Rami is a brand new Toastmaster. He kind of disappeared for a year and a half, and he really wanted to talk about the icebreaker speech. So couple weeks ago, he came in, he talked about the importance of an icebreaker. He did a really good PowerPoint. It was the most amazing educational on the icebreaker that I've ever seen. So it was really great, and he's a relatively new and nervous member. And then a few of these members are experienced members, but we also have individuals who have just recently joined and have threw their hat in the ring, and they wanted to really, really get in there and try it. So as we go through, you notice that I have created areas where our club members can actually do speeches as well, and we encourage club members to do speeches as well as educationals. So we have a 2-hour time slot every Tuesday, and we are able to fit a lot of stuff in that 2 hours. Not everyone can do that, but we are fortunate to do that. And then at the end, why Toastmasters and what's next, we talk about the importance of pathways and why joining Toastmasters. The last meeting, the speech crafters, if we have enough, run the meeting. So they take on the chair, they are general evaluator, they are a grammarian, and they do all the roles if possible, and then they do speeches as well. So throughout the 10 weeks, we have incorporated educationals, we incorporate our own speeches, and we encourage them to take on roles as soon as week 2 happens. So we explain all the rules in great detail, and then we kind of ask them at the end of each meeting if they're interested in doing that. At the end of each week, I assign homework. So there's readings that they do in their textbooks just to follow along so that they know what's coming up. And they do receive information when they leave the meetings as well. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to ask. Resources available. On Toastmasters International, you could actually order a Speechcraft kit. In the kit comes a couple coordinator guides, 5 workbooks, I think. You get some information, you get certificates, and you get some pamphlets and brochures. So those are really beneficial when you are trying to promote Speechcraft. And I don't know if maybe Dave can answer this question, but in the past, the district would provide free Speechcraft starter kits to individuals that wanted to do a Speechcraft. I don't know if that is something that still happens, Dave.
That is not in effect currently. This year we do not have a Speechcraft chair, and that's usually an initiative that is launched there. But
okay. Yes.
That being said, if you know, we could certainly entertain if you were dedicated into going and looking at doing Speechcraft.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Yeah, so these packages are available, and they're relatively cheap. I think they were $20 for a package of 5 or whatever. So your group can order it. You get all this information. In the coordinator's guide, it actually has a breakdown of what you should offer week by week, and it gives you an agenda on Speechcraft. So it's actually a really useful tool to use. And I've read it many, many times, and I have many different copies of this coordinator's guide everywhere. So that is a resource available to you. Another resource that's available to you is this guy right here. Me, I'm available as a resource. Feel free to email me, and I would be happy to talk to individuals on the phone. I just didn't want to put my phone number in there because Dave puts this all over the internet, and I don't want people calling me. So, but my email is there. Feel free to reach out and ask, because I'm more than happy to talk about Speechcraft. I don't know if you've noticed, but I kind of love Speechcraft. It changed my life and the direction that I headed, and I have lots of good things to say about it. So the question that I'm asking everyone, why would you not do a Speechcraft course? Well, the only reasons that I can consider is, 1, the club just doesn't have the resources to do one. 2, everyone is content with the numbers that they have in their club and they don't want to do something new. 3, people don't like change, and change is difficult and hard sometimes. 4, just, I don't know. I can't even think of any more. So it's why would you not do a Speechcraft? You should think of reasons why you want to do a Speechcraft. It has changed so many people's lives that I have known, and it has helped our club be presidential distinguished for the last 4 years in a row, and we have constantly over 20 members. So we have no issues in our club in regards to membership retention, and that's a huge stressor that is kind of off our shoulders, because every January, every September, we do a Speechcraft. We know that we're doing it for 10 weeks each time. We know that there will be people that come, and our club is energized. We have really strong meetings, and I would recommend Speechcraft to anyone. So the question might be, well, how do I even start? I don't even know where to begin looking at a Speechcraft program. Well, form a team. Talk to 3 or 4 Toastmasters, people that are committed, that can maybe commit every week. If somebody can't commit every week, that's okay. Maybe someone can commit for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and you can figure out an agenda, and you figure out where people are slotted and where people's strengths are used. So that could be a really good team building exercise for your club. You order the supplies. Just get the money, order it, make it happen. You know that the supplies are coming, so you need to offer a Speechcraft program. So that would be a start. Promote if you're offering it. Promote if you're offering it to the public and you're trying to get public in. Use social media, use posters, use word of mouth. Whatever it is, get people to sign up for Speechcraft. Or if you as a club are offering it to a company, then you just need to connect with them and find out what the company needs. And companies will tell you, we want team building. We want people to be more comfortable public speaking. We want people more comfortable speaking in general. We have a lot of issues with working as a team, and I think this might be a really good experience. So then you know, and you can base your agenda and itinerary based on that. I have a planning meeting, so grab your 3 or 4 people, sit down over coffee, over lunch, over a breakfast, talk for an hour, plan it out, jot some notes, have someone send those notes out, and you're set. Set an agenda for the 10 weeks. As I said in the books, it gives you an agenda. I can send you a few agendas. I have many over the last 10 years that I've done. That's not a problem. Set it, plan the first 3 weeks, and then as you go, everything else will kind of fall into place relatively easy. Make sure you have your supplies, evaluations, timer cards, stopwatch, workbooks, roll sheets, and you're pretty much set. Have your first meeting. You have the Toastmasters lead the majority of the meeting. So you have a Toastmaster as a chair, you have Toastmasters doing key roles, you explain all the roles, and you get the speech crafters to take over the roles the second week, the third week, the fourth week. So really, you're just there to do the evaluations, make sure the meeting runs smoothly, and contribute when you want to contribute. The speech crafters should be able to take over the meeting, and you sit and you kind of observe and watch it go. Toastmasters should do oral evaluations for every speech. On TI's website, it recommends that everyone gives oral evaluations. I personally don't recommend that just because people aren't comfortable. And if you're in a team setting, a business setting, where they are doing this as professional development, it's really hard for someone to get up and critique or give feedback to their boss. It might change the dynamic of their work. So for that reason, just have the Toastmasters do it and then collect evaluations after. This is a good opportunity for team building. So if a company is reaching out to you and they want a Speechcraft to be done, really good opportunity to maybe incorporate some really small team building exercises in there. The game Catchphrase, I use it on a regular basis. It not only encourages public speaking, but it encourages working as a team. I highly recommend Catchphrase, and it's a good icebreaker in the last 15 minutes, and it's a good way to set the tone and start. Keep regular contact. So if you are doing a Speechcraft out in the community, connect with them on a regular basis, weekly check-ins, make sure you're covering the content that is needed. If you have a Speechcraft in your club, make sure you check in with your Speechcraft members on a regular basis. It's really easy for a Speechcrafter to sign up, come at one meeting, and then disappear because they didn't make that connection. And that is tough when you lose someone in a Speechcraft in week 1 or week 2. Once you had them for a couple weeks and they've done their icebreaker, you have them for the 10. But it's really important that you maintain that contact and you keep checking in with them, because sometimes they're really uncomfortable and they really don't want to be there, and you have to kind of ease that tension. At the end, present certificates. You want to acknowledge their accomplishments, acknowledge they were there, they participated, and have them complete an evaluation form. Have them tell you areas that they really enjoyed and areas that need improvement. Like I said, Speechcraft is really flexible, and you could change it and accommodate really quickly. And then try to sign them up for Toastmasters. So I always, at the last meeting, tell them about what's next, and then I give them Toastmasters forms to sign up, and I explain who they need to see if they want to pay their dues. So that works really well. Some more advice. Some rules and advice. No Toastmasters can have a financial personal gain from a Speechcraft session. The money needs to go towards a club and helps with expenses. So there's expenses who order the manuals. There's expenses for your paper, your pens. There might be other expenses that you have. So a person can't take the money. I can't go and say, yeah, I'm doing a Speechcraft session, and then take the money and pocket it. It has to go towards a club in some capacity. So you explain that to the clubs or wherever you do it. You say that we are volunteers. We are here promoting Toastmasters. The money that we raise, if we raise money, goes directly to our club, and it's for this reason. Funds need to be used for educational enhancements in the club only, can't be used for membership dues. So you can't go out and do a Speechcraft and then all of a sudden sign up a few members to pad your stats. It needs to go to educational enhancements. Educational enhancements include pins. There's nice new pathway pins that you can buy on the TI store. Before, they used to be educational books, lecterns, things that help your club run better. You can purchase with your Speechcraft money. Only the coordinator of the program gets a credit in the educational path, but if you run a few, you can have a different coordinator each time. So you can have an HPL, or you can have someone else working on certain things in your pathways. Cost, and now this is a huge debate. In TI, in the TI manual, it says $20 to $25 to cover the costs. So a book costs $6.95 American, and then all the other costs, so $20 to $25. However, past international president last year said we should actually be charging a little bit more, because at $20 you're giving it away. For 4, 6, 8 weeks, you're giving away Toastmasters, and you're giving away some vital information. If you charge $60, for example, they are still getting a lot out of the program. If you base it per hour, it's very cheap. $60 per person is not a lot of money, and that could really enhance a club's experience. So you can really buy things, you can buy lecterns, you can make yourself look really professional, and it goes a long way. So typically we charge $50 Canadian, so whatever that is for you guys, like 35 American maybe, but that's our range. So when we go out into the public and we do Speechcraft, we charge $50 a person. When we do it here at our club, it's $50 a person, and that money goes to buying pins and educational things so we could award our members. But that's up to you, and whatever you feel comfortable with charging. But I tell you, $35 to $50, not a big deal per person. And if people are bringing professional development into their company, sometimes it's $300, $400 per person. So it's not a really big cost to them, and they probably gain a lot more from this little program than bringing some other professional development in. So just a thought. And it's perfect if you're trying to start a club. Speechcraft is a good way to go as a starter and to give people a taste of what Toastmasters is and the experience. And in that 10 weeks, and I say 10, but in the 4, 6, 8, 10, people change, people develop, people grow, and people really are aware that it has helped. And that's why this is the #1 tool in gaining and retaining members in clubs. So with that, what questions do you have?
Hey, Matt, we've got a question from Stephanie.
Sure.
And Stephanie asks, or first off, she explains, we meet for 1 hour every second Friday.
Yeah.
Would this even be feasible on that schedule? And I know the answer, but I'd like to hear your answer.
100% it's feasible. You just have to arrange your meeting and make sure that it's really condensed and really perfect timing to make sure it's beneficial, right? And for you guys, maybe I would offer maybe 10 sessions, 12 sessions, just so people can get the best. And I would also maybe keep it under 5 new Speechcrafters, because if you have any more than that, it's impossible to get in that little hour. But it's definitely doable, and I would definitely encourage you to even try it. Maybe even a small scale, 2 or 3 people. That would probably be helpful, and build it right into your meeting.
Okay. While we're waiting for another question, Matt, one of the questions that I was asked, and I'm just going to throw it out here.
Sure.
We had someone at a different event say, "Hey, Speechcraft, is it still good for growing members? With the old program, you used to get credit for your first 3 speeches in a CC manual. And now that Pathways is here, you don't get that. So is there still value?" And again, I'd like your insight. And
okay, so Dave, you put me on the spot, and I probably should have clarified this before. I'm going to give my personal view right now. This is not Toastmasters International view. This is not an approved view, and I might be totally wrong. Lots of benefit with Speechcraft still. So they need to do an icebreaker, and it happens in your club. So if you see it and somebody signs up, why can't you carry it over to Pathways? If I'm the VP of Education and I see someone that has completed their icebreaker, why is that an issue, right? If you look at the second speech in Pathways Level 1, it's a research speech. In the booklet, there are lots of speeches that have research involved in the speech. So I'm saying if it makes sense, if it matches, and the VP of Education and the president and everyone was on board, there's probably a way to make that work. If somebody did a Speechcraft session somewhere else and they came to me and said, oh, I did it, I wouldn't be comfortable with doing that. And that totally could be wrong, and I totally can get in trouble from this. And Dave might have a little session with me after, but that's how I was thinking about approaching it. I haven't done that yet, but that might be a way around it. I don't know.
okay. Well, that wasn't the answer that I heard.
What was the answer that you heard?
So, and I'll tell you what, I agree with you on the icebreaker. It is, you know, if you hear an icebreaker is an icebreaker. And I think that's the same thing, you know, and I wouldn't, you know, if there's a speech that applies, you know, you could do that. But I got to tell you, the speeches that you give in Speechcraft are lessons in and of themselves, and they're important skills to develop. And sometimes we spend a little bit of time thinking about checking that box.
Yeah.
And I think that when you do the Speechcraft, you're learning the skill, and that's its own reward.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't. I love that second project, the feedback and evaluation project in Pathways. I would hate someone to miss out on that.
And you couldn't. There'd be no way that I would be able to justify transferring anything from Speechcraft for that one section, right? But the icebreaker, I'd be totally comfortable doing that. If they were a paying member and I saw it, and I'm introducing them to Pathways anyway, because as VP of Education, I sit with them and I give them an hour orientation in Pathways. And so I would be comfortable with that, but I wouldn't be comfortable with the second one. Or if it didn't match, if it didn't make sense, yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. If it lines up with maybe the researching one, then I could see that happening. Now this is going to be recorded, and I might have to delete that comment, but
that's not official, and that's not signed off by Toastmasters International. And who knows, me and Dave might be fired after this, but
you never know. I do think it is worth the think it is worth the experience. Now, Mike Overland has said officially in Pathways it counts towards the icebreaker if they join now, and I believe they include a form for that in the Speechcraft package.
Okay, I haven't seen that form yet, so that's why I was just kind of pulling stuff out of the sky.
All right, and Mike is my resident Pathways expert, so if Mike says it is so, I believe it is so.
Mike, you saved the day. Thank you.
So any other questions that we have? If you've got a question, feel free to raise your hand, or you can type it in the Q&A box, or you can type it in the chat box as well.
Or you can email me later, whatever you want.
Yes. But if you email later, it will not be included on the webinar.
And it won't be official.
Yep. Well, and there are no bad questions.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got Mike. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Thanks, Dave. Matthew, I'm wondering about the recruitment and how, you had mentioned that you get a lot from word of mouth. You don't have to do much for your club. I am wondering if that's something that got built up over time, because I mean, 30 Speechcrafts in 10 years, you've obviously been very busy. Great job. But I'm wondering if that kind of helps it over time, because certainly with clubs I'm involved with, this is not something that we have a tradition of doing.
Yeah. So in Nanabiju, the club that I'm from, they've been doing Speechcraft for over 25 years. And so when I joined 11 years ago, I suggested that we start doing it outside of our club in an effort to spread the word of Toastmasters and in an effort to raise some funds for our club. And so I talked to someone just in passing, and she said, you know what, that might be something that we would really interested in. We did a few, and now it just seems every year 2 or 3 requests come in from companies around the city that have heard that we do this kind of thing, and they're interested in pursuing it. So we don't actively promote it, but if we do get an email or an inquiry, and they usually come to me, I usually try to make it happen. So I actually did one with a brand new club, the brand new club that we started, Empty Voices. We had an Indigenous organization reach out to us and said, we heard that you're doing Toastmasters. Can you do something small for us on a smaller scale for our 9 reps from the region? And we did a 5-session Speechcraft, because that's all that worked. And they really loved it and really benefited from it. And then from there, other people have messaged. So it's basically been word of mouth. And I guess it's out in the universe that we kind of do that, and people are embracing it and excited. And if ever I come across someone who might benefit from professional development, I say, oh, have you heard about Toastmasters? We could come to you and we could do this small course. Would you like some information? And I send them some information, and then within a couple of weeks, we are doing a session at their workplace. So.
I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead.
I was going to follow up for back when you were not getting necessarily those requests, when you first had the idea to go out to businesses or go out to the community and find people. Is there somebody at a company, a particular position you're looking to talk to, somebody in HR, a manager, or any particular person you're looking for?
Usually human resources is a really good place to start. Or if there are frontline staff and they could really benefit and they have a voice in their company, usually it's frontline staff or HR that brings it to the executive director or CEO, and then they contact me. So it's usually the key people. And when you talk to someone, you realize, yeah, okay, this person has been with the company for 10 years. They might have a little bit of a voice, and then it's just a discussion. You have a discussion, you have no expectations, and then it turns into doing a 10-week Speechcraft over lunch. And Mike, we've been to places too where we offer to do a Speechcraft, and it has to be over their lunch hour, and the company's brought in food for the staff and us because they had to feed their staff because it's professional development, and they weren't allowed to leave the building. So they would bring in lunch, and they would feed us lunch, and we would say no, and they said you have to have lunch. And so
sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt.
No problem.
All right. So we did get a question here from Mike Nelson. He said, can a Speechcrafter get credit if he or she misses a certain number of meetings?
That's a very good question, because sometimes we have individuals who sign up and then they have every intention of coming, but the nerves or things that happen in their life and they only come 2 or 3 times. So we give certificates out, and we give certificates out if they've attended more than 50% of the meetings. So if we have 10, they've attended 6. And if they have, and I tell them right at the beginning, if you don't attend 6, you're not getting a certificate. And you can say that you've taken it, but you're not going to get a certificate. And it's not a pass or fail. It's just you didn't complete the requirements. But if I have someone that came every week and didn't do a speech, that's okay with me. You came, you participated, you took on some roles. I'm okay with that. When I did my Speechcraft, I did 1 speech, and then 3.5 years later, it took me to do my CC. So it took me 3.5 years to do 10 speeches. And then the other 3.5 years, I did like the 46 for DTM. So hopefully that answers your question, Mike.
All right. So Mike Overland had talked about, you know, it wasn't like when you came into this Speechcraft, it was already a tradition.
Yeah.
And that's something that a club could develop.
Easy.
But if you're a club that doesn't do this right now, really, what would you say is the first step? How do you get the word out? How do you I know you're going to point back to your slide and
as a slide 17, the best way to do it is form a team. You find 3-4 people who are really interested and are committed, you're set. Once you have the 3 or 4 people, everything else is easy peasy. You just have to have a conversation, and then you figure out the agenda. In the coordinators manual, really good tool. They break down everything, and they tell you exactly everything that you need, and they give you sessions, session 3, session 4, session 5, what you should cover, how you should cover it. So everything is in this little book. And of course, if you have questions, you ask someone who's done it. You just need to have someone who's willing to do it. And once you do, everything else is easy.
Okay. All right. If we wanted to get a copy of that agenda that you had, that 10-week agenda,
yeah,
is that something that we can get, and where would we find that?
That agenda was made from me. I have many agendas from the last 10 years. I have also ones that when we went to agencies and companies. So if you were interested in one, I could send it to you. If you want one posted, I could do that. Whatever. If you send me an email, I can do that. Whatever works, Dave.
Would it be possible to have that sent to me, and I can post it alongside with this video up on the D106 website?
I can do that for you. Okay.
Any other questions for Matthew while we have him? Well, I'll tell you what, we had some good questions. It is 7:48. We did manage to use all of our time this week. Hey, Matthew, I want to thank you so much for coming out and sharing this great information about Speechcraft. I want to emphasize that this is a valuable tool. It is something that we can use to help build our clubs up and make our clubs stronger. If you've got questions on this, I know Matthew put his email up, and I know that he is willing to help out. This has been fantastic. I want to thank all of our participants for coming out and dedicating their time this evening on coming out and learning some new information to help make your club stronger, and it's appreciated. Hey, next week we're going to be talking about pathways, and this should be a pretty exciting session. It is going to be a question and answer session. So the link will be put up on the website tomorrow. I know I sent out an email invitation, so if you're a club officer in District 106, you've gotten the invite with the link. I'd recommend logging in or registering early if you can attend. If you cannot attend, and I put this on my email invitation as well, and you have some questions that you would like answered, send them up. We have an expert panel from right here in District 106, and we've got a special treat. We have 2 members of World Headquarters, Toastmasters World Headquarters, including the Director of Training and Development for Toastmasters International, who is going to be sitting on our panel for this. I mentioned to her that we were going to be doing this, and she said, I want to be part of this. So this is going to be that's our session for next week. So I'm hoping that everyone will take advantage of that. As always, these will be recorded and stored up on the District 106 website. If you've got any questions on Toolbox Tuesday, definitely reach out to me. I want to thank you all for coming out. This has been Toolbox Tuesday, and we'll see you next week.